Hi guys, Nicky Price from travelcreateexplore.com, and today I wanted to run through how I edit my images in Lightroom ready for Instagram. So I wanted to run through this image that I took from Venice a couple of months ago. This was the final product that we had, and I was pretty chuffed with it in the end, but the original image wasn't that interesting. In fact, I almost contemplated getting rid of it. And that's the power of Lightroom. My workflow in Lightroom has developed over the last year or so to the point where I rarely use Photoshop on many of my images. So this is going to be my complete step-by-step walkthrough for how I edit images in Lightroom. So we're going to try and make this image match the final product that I just showed you there. So we're on the Develop tab, and the first area that I will go to will be exposure. So obviously this image is quite severely underexposed, so I'm going to boost that all the way up to about 1. I like quite contrasty images, so I'm going to bring this quite high. And as you can see at this point, we've got a very blown out sky and a very, very dark foreground, so we're going to have to balance that. And normally I wouldn't go too severe with this, but it really needs quite a bit of balancing in this image. Now you want to try not to push this too far, because you can end up with that HDR look where everything just looks super bright and colourful and it just looks a little bit fake. So we want to try and just make this quite subtle, so I'd say about 60. I then go to the clarity. So I normally put clarity to about -5, just a slight decline, just because it gives a little bit of a painting effect to the image, and I like just the finishing product that it gives. The tone curve, I put 3 control points on here, and as a general guide I just like to create an S-curve with the tone curve, and clip the shadows slightly as well. So by clipping the shadows, it just puts a slight fade in there. So I'm going to leave that like that and just do a very slight S-curve, something like that. So very subtle, but you may be able to do this more significantly with other images, but only a very, very subtle one was needed on this particular image. Now for the saturation and luminance control points. Now this is a really powerful tool in Lightroom where you can choose to boost individual colors within your image. So for example, in this, the blues are really nice, but the yellows in the foreground aren't that nice. So we can take these away essentially, or boost them. So I like some of the reds in the canal boats there, so I'll boost that slightly. There's quite a bit of nice oranges in the sky, so I'll boost the orange as well. And I'm just going to bring yellow down, and that will not get rid of it completely, but just minimize any of there, because there's slight orange in there as well. The other color that I want to boost will be the blue. You'll see that will actually boost the colors in the canal boats and obviously in the sky. Let's put that about 20. And then purple and magenta I will always put to -100, just because that removes any color fringing that you might have in your image. Moving on to the luminance tab, I will generally again go through each individual color and work out which ones I want to boost. I'm going to put orange down slightly because it just keeps the colors in the sky, and I'm going to boost that blue just by 10 there. Now moving on to split toning. So split toning is a way of giving a slight tint to your image, whether in the shadows or the highlights. And generally I think less is more with split toning. So I normally add a 5 to the saturation of the shadows and bring that around to somewhere in the blue. So about there, about 240, 250. From there I'll apply some sharpening to the image. Generally I like to put it around 70. And then what you can do with sharpening is you can use a masking tool. And this is quite powerful because it enables you to apply sharpening to only some parts of the image. So on my Mac, I would hit the Alt or Option key, and I would drag the masking tool all the way across. And what you'll see is that it actually shows you where the sharpening is going to be taking place. So I think about there is nice. Okay, so now we're getting pretty close to the final product. If we jump back to the final image, so we can see that we're getting close. There's two things that we've got to do to finalize the image. Obviously, one is crop, and the second is put a graduated filter on there. Now, these two final steps I wouldn't necessarily do on every single image, but just to match this one, I'll demonstrate it now. So to crop, I would do, for this particular image, it's a 16:8 crop. So let's put that about there. And then for the graduated filter, I would just drag this from the top, pull that down a little bit further. And all I'm doing is trying to bring out a little bit more detail in the sky here. Let's drag that down. Something like that. So very subtle, and just to demonstrate the difference. Very subtle, but it makes quite a big difference to the overall image. And to compare the final image with the image that we got previously, so there's some subtle differences there, but as a general rule of thumb, that's roughly my walkthrough for editing photos in Lightroom. Now obviously the next step would be to export that to Instagram. So I will go back to the library tab, I will click export, and you'll see I have a little user preset for Instagram here. So I have it saved in my Instagram folder. I will label it under Venice. I keep the quality at 100%. Now what you don't want to do is export a 60,000 by 4,000 image, so it takes up a significant amount of room on your Dropbox when Instagram only takes a much smaller file size. So essentially what I'll do is I will export to 1350 as a square. This won't crop the image, but it will just set that as the maximum resolution. And then I will click export there. And because I've already exported it before, it will already be there. So once that's exported to the folder in my Dropbox, I will obviously open that up on my phone, save it to the camera roll, and then I'm pretty much ready to upload to Instagram. I might add a little bit of contrast and sharpening in the Instagram app, but other than that, everything pretty much stays the same. So hopefully this gives you an overview of how I edit my images in Lightroom ready to be uploaded to Instagram. If you want an easy way of getting a really similar look, I'm offering a free Lightroom preset on my website when you sign up to the weekly newsletter. There's a link in the description box to that, as well as a link to my Instagram page if you're not already following me. So thanks very much for watching the video, guys, and catch you in the next one.